Welcome back to my channel, sports fans. Okay, let's get into this one right here. Let's get into it. Playoff P, still podcasting. Podcast P, still podcasting. What up with that? I thought he was done podcasting. I thought he was getting back to what he was supposed to be doing. And is he really making this kind of money, folks? Is he really making this kind of money? We'll talk about that. And I want to talk about Johnny Arnett because I'm going to keep my foot on his damn neck about making that LeBron James video. We just got to hold this guy to a standard while he keeps lying to us, folks. So let me say this first. I know a lot of people responded to the Wilt Chamberlain video. Stop the Wilt Chamberlain hate. And that's cool. A lot of people said this and said that about, Wilt Chamberlain didn't show up in this game. He didn't, produce in this game, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it ain't blah, 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 but I'm just saying, etc. I never said Wilt Chamberlain was perfect. I never did. And basically, you can go to any superstar, even Michael Jordan, and show his bad games. Him shooting 3 for 28, all this stuff from the field. But let's remember, as much as I love Michael Jordan, the basketball player, there's some caveats with this guy too. It ain't like he was playing the Knicks and Patrick Ewing had another All-Star or not All-Star. Well, sometimes he didn't, or Hall of Famer or top 75 player on his team. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Let's be real. What I respect about Michael Jordan is everything. But Michael Jordan did what he had to do with what was in front of him. Okay? All great players, all great teams do. They usually do what they have to do with the situation. He could have choked and lost to the Knicks, lost to Cleveland, lost to this team, whatever, but he did it. He did what he had to do, and what he had to do, he more than likely had the better teams when it was his time. Okay? He had the better teams when he had his time. Now, let's be real. If they drop him in the 80s with any of those three Bulls teams that play the Celtics, when Celtics were at their prime, they're not going to win. They're not going to win. Or the Lakers. They're not going to win. And that's no knock against Michael Jordan or the Bulls, but that just was their time in the 90s. They might. I'm not going to try to say they won't win no championships against those teams, but they're not going to win a 6-peat. Just like, maybe the Celtics, they're not going to win. Maybe they won't even win 3 championships. If the Bulls were at their peak of the 90s and they were playing in the 80s, whatever like that, or the Lakers. If you drop the Bulls in that era when they were at their peak in the 90s, maybe the Lakers don't even win 5 championships. So, like I said, we can pick out and we can nitpick about a whole bunch of stuff we want to. That's just how it is. Magic Johnson had bad games. Larry Bird had bad games. Kareem had bad games. We can go ahead and piss on John Stockton and Karl Malone for never beating the Lakers never beating the Lakers in the West. And then we can say, the Lakers really wasn't going against nobody in the West. Wasn't really going against nobody compared to the team they had. They were stacked with 5 Hall of Famers some years. In most years, 4 Hall of Famers on one team. So that's what I'm saying. If you drop the Bulls in the 80s, even at the peak Bulls, they're not going to beat those Lakers teams. Maybe one time, I don't know. But I knew they were going to do this. That's why when I came on, I said, look, Wilt ain't perfect. He didn't have a perfect career, and blah, blah, blah. So, yes, what a lot of these guys are saying is true. Yeah, Wilt didn't do this, Wilt did it. But you can do that for a lot of guys. When we talk about 69, right? And the Lakers were a favorite. And this is what, I didn't have Bill Russell in my top 5 until this moment right here. Back when I found out that, Bill Russell rallied the troops in 69, Game 7, to beat the Lakers. And the Lakers were favorite. And that the owner of the Lakers he basically was celebrating before Game 7. He guaranteed in the newspapers and spread it all around the sports tabloids that the Lakers, no, he guaranteed a win. So, of course, Russell got wind of that, took it personal, and he rallied his troops and basically ran them up and down the court rugged. The Lakers, right? Lakers had some miles, and the Celtics also had some miles, but you got to remember, Wilt Chamberlain, this was not the same Wilt Chamberlain. Probably after year 9 or something like that, he was dealing with crazy injuries. Remember, the pace back then was insane. The pace back then was the same pace it is now in the NBA. So you take a 7-footer like that, running at that pace his entire career, and playing all 82 games all the time from the start, and doing more than Bill Russell, because he had to score too. So defend, rebound on the same level as Bill Russell, plus score all those points at that fast pace at 7 foot. Bill Russell was only, what was he, like 6'8" or something like that? 6'7"? Whatever, 6'8". So it was kind of different for Wilt Chamberlain. So what I'm trying to say, year 8, 9, something like that, Wilt Chamberlain was only in there playing like a Bill Russell type of brand of basketball. But I think he was playing it at a higher level than Bill Russell, because he also was better at assisting the ball, and he was blocking the ball at the same rate or more than Bill Russell, or he was getting rebounds at the same rate or more than Bill Russell. But then it had the overall team like Bill Russell. Remember, Elgin Baylor, I ain't even gonna say it, man. I ain't gonna try to make up all these excuses. But the fact is, I'm just telling you, a lot of people say stuff, but they can't explain. They say, oh, well, this happened, this happened. But explain why it happened. I try to get on here and explain. So, Bill Russell said, we're going to run the Lakers rugged until they can't run no more. And that's basically what he did. And in the fourth quarter, that's when it was close. It was going down to the wire, and Wilt Chamberlain couldn't even go no more. His knee gave out on him. He was done. He set out, if I'm mistaken, from like 6-7 minutes to go all the way until the game was over. He literally couldn't stand no more. He was done. And became a bench player. And that's when I put Bill Russell in my top 4. Because of that. But before that, I couldn't do it. Remember what we saw yesterday? Bill Russell played with 7 top 75 players. He played with top 75 of 7, and he played with 11 Hall of Famers. So, I mean, 7 top 75 players, and he didn't do it for a few years. He did it most of his career when they were young. It wasn't like, he got over with Wilt Chamberlain got over there with Elgin Baylor and Jerry West when they were basically out their prime. No, Bill Russell played with these top 75 players and a lot of these Hall of Fame players, for the most part, in their prime from the start of their career. So again, I'm not sitting here trying to say, Wilt Chamberlain was perfect. No. You can go and dig up stuff on Wilt Chamberlain, but you can go dig up bad games on Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Karl Malone, any guy that was great in the NBA, or any guy you want to put in your top 5. Remember, the Lakers, with all that firepower, were still Magic ended up being 5-4. Magic ended up being 5-4 in the finals. What does that mean? Because if I sit up here and tell the truth, dudes, oh man, you hating on that? No, I'm not. 5-4 in the finals. That's one game over 500, guys. One game over 500 with all that firepower. Consistently, now that we know Cooper is a Hall of Famer, 4 Hall of Famers consistently in that start lineup. That's insane. And most of the time, a lot of times too, they have 5 Hall of Famers on the team at one time. Okay, so if you want to talk about something like that, let's talk. How did they get a 5-4 record? Magic Johnson with all that firepower. I'm just saying. They played the Celtics. Okay, yeah, they played the Celtics and lost. But still, they have more firepower than the Celtics. Most people consider Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar top 5. Celtics didn't have nothing like that. And the Celtics were loaded too. 3-2. One game over 500, the Celtics. One game over 500 in the finals. One game. One game. And, you know, the same thing with the Celtics. The Celtics had, at times, 5 Hall of Famers on one team. And then 4. And then 3. But a lot of times, 4 and 5. Just saying. I mean, I've already did the investigation behind a lot of this stuff. That's all I'm trying to say. And the biggest thing, yeah, people have bad games. But the whole point of the video was not to say Wilt was perfect, not to say Wilt didn't have this bad, that bad, whatever like that. The whole purpose of the video was when people bang on Wilt Chamberlain, but at the same time have a love affair with Bill Russell, which is fine if that's what you want to do. You don't sit there and really expose Bill Russell's career, except for being a winner. And I told you guys before, when I say expose his career, I'm talking about use some context with his career. The way he shot was horrible as a center. And his attempts wasn't there on top of that, which means you didn't have to worry about him being no offensive threat. He just had to do half of what Wilt Chamberlain had to do. That's all he had to do. Bill Russell. Do half of what Wilt Chamberlain did, and his guys carried him home. And I'll tell you, again, what other great defender in NBA history could win even 5 championships, 3, just being a great defender? Tell me. There's none. There's no Patrick. Let's just say Hakeem was just a great defender and a rebounder, which he was. David Robinson, great defender, great rebounder. These guys, how come they just couldn't win all those championships? Or Dikembe Mutombo or Alonzo Mourning. How come they couldn't just win all those championships shooting miserable, which they didn't even shoot that bad? That's just mind-blowing for a center to be shooting in the 40s and the upper 30s and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, how come they couldn't win all those championships being a defender and a rebounder? Why? Most of them guys won none to 1. But Bill Russell is touted over Wilt Chamberlain for just being a rebounder and a defender. But when Wilt Chamberlain does it after like season 8, they piss in his eyes. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just saying, you guys ain't understanding the whole concept of some of you guys ain't. We just sit here trying to nitpick. I already went through Wilt Chamberlain's career, but nobody wants to go through Bill Russell's career. That's the problem. They just want to, Bill Russell was a leader. Yes, and he was. He was the greatest leader of all time. But who the hell was he leading? Homie was leading 7 top 75 players. Not Hall of Famers. That's legit. Top 75 guys. Where it's no nitpicking when they say top 75. Sometimes you can nitpick Hall of Famers, especially back then. But he did play with 11 Hall of Famers altogether. So it ain't like he was leading a bunch of nobodies. People won't bring up that. Who has him, in the top 3. The top 3. Yeah, I'm putting Bill Russell in the top 3 all day. We just talking about championships. And like I said, I'll take what Bill Russell told me and all those guys that played in the 60s, guys that played in the 70s, and guys that watched the game as kids and played in the NBA in the 70s, the 80s. I'll go with what they said. And they said Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest basketball player of all time. I'll just go with that. See, because people, when they see the drop-off in numbers after like season 8, 9, I think it's 8, they go, oh man, look at that Wilt Chamberlain. But again, he got his eyes pissed on for scoring all these points and doing all this stuff. You can't win that way. You got to be like Bill Russell. And we already know it wasn't no centers dominating in the playoffs or the NBA Finals. It was the perimeter guys that was dominating. Or it was a more evenly balanced team game. It wasn't dudes scoring all these points. And if it was the perimeter players. It was the perimeter players because it was easier to hack a dude who was a center and throw him on the line or double team him. So it was more the perimeter players that were dominating in the 60s. But still, they want Wilt Chamberlain to dominate in the finals, in the playoffs, when it wasn't happening with any other center like that. That's what they can't explain to you, or they can't tell you. They'll just want to tell you what they want to tell you. And it's unfortunate. Like, I'm going to move on, but like I said, it's there. It's there to poop on Wilt Chamberlain because you don't like him. Whatever. But at the same time, we can go to anybody else's. Nobody else was running into a dynasty back then. Nobody, well, I guess you could say, we look at the 80s and 90s, everybody else was running into these dynasties, the Celtics, the Lakers. And we talk about the Lakers. The West was weak. Let's be real. The West was almost as weak as LeBron James East in the 2000s. I won't say the 2010s, that was just embarrassing for the NBA. But it was almost as weak as LeBron James 2000s East, with all those guys stacked on one team. And they still came out 5-4. I'm just saying. What are you saying? I'm just saying. So just a little, yesterday was not about no hate on Bill Russell. It was context. You got the you don't want context? Nah, they don't want context on Bill Russell. And like I said, you didn't have Wilt Chamberlain shooting miserably from the field when he was taking a lot of shots, or he reduced his attempts. He still wasn't shooting miserable. So let's talk about, I don't know which one I want to talk about first. Probably Meltdown Playoff P, Podcast P. We can talk about it. Now, maybe this is an old podcast. I'm not for sure. But he told us that he was going to put down podcasting, do away with podcasting. And this is interesting here when we talk about podcasting. We'll get into this. Put down podcasting and get back to basketball. And why is that? Well, it really ain't got nothing to do with winning championships. This guy could care less. It's about all the money you are stealing from the fans. And we'll talk about the money aspect in a minute. Because some of these guys are just scared to death to talk about this. But I seen his podcast 2 weeks ago. If you look it up on his channel, he podcasted 2 weeks ago. And, and he's had many podcasts since he said he was going to chill out on podcasting and get back to basketball. So why is he still podcasting? Why is he podcasting anyway, folks? I don't, I'm lost here. I'm at a loss of words. So let's check this out. So last year, he made $49 million. This year, he's going to make $51 million. And it's odd that these numbers keep going up because they don't earn shit. Where's the contract based on? Okay, it's going to go up based on what you did. But instead, these teams just give these guys more money based on absolutely nothing. So every year, they do evaluation with you at work. And they evaluate you, see how much you're worth based on what you did that year, going into next year. So in 26-27, he's due to make $54 million. And then 27-28, I think it's a player option, $56 million. He's going to be 35 this year. Next year, 36. Next year, 37. So guys just wasting away his years as an NBA player. I think this is, who is this? Oklahoma City. He was there 3 years. Let me go back. No, it don't say on there. So count that up, whatever that is. Holy crap. So in the 4 years with Oklahoma City, homie made $136 million. To do what? What did he do? 14-18 with the Pacers, he made $91 million. To do what? This is what I'm going to say. Because all things point to bullshit. All things point to bullshit. Seems like a Ponzi scheme is being ran with these NBA players, along with the owners. Yes, this is why my channel is shadow banned. So a Ponzi scheme, to me, I'm not saying, I have any evidence but common sense. They call it conspiracy, right? But it's no longer a conspiracy if you have a clue. And a detective, I guess he's a conspiracy theorist, right? Accusing somebody of something because he said this person conspired to do whatever. So he goes out and he looks for clues, right? And once he finds these clues, he puts them together, and it's no longer a conspiracy theory. So, I call bullshit on these guys making this kind of money. First of all, why in the hell would you need a podcast in the first place if you're making all this money? You should be out there practicing until you pass the fuck out. Not only because of this money you're making with Philly, but the money you already have made. It will be zero reason for you to be out podcasting, making money. Because it's apparent to me, all these NBA players are podcasting. Why? To make money. Nobody has a channel out there but me, because I ain't making no money. I'm not monetized, and I'm shadow banned. Nobody is doing it out of the kindness of their heart and dropping videos and taking 30 minutes, an hour, whatever out of their time just because of the love. I don't believe it. If you're doing it for the love, demonetize yourself. They can't. They can't. So I'm not trying to say everybody's just doing it just because of the money. Like the little guys, little channels. But they are doing it for the money also. But there's guys out there that's only doing it for money. And will start telling white lies in a heartbeat just to make money. Case in point, Johnny Arnett with the Tim Habershaw, is that his name? Put out that video against Michael Jordan. Never dropped the LeBron James video like he said. What was that, like a year and a half ago? And this guy done had every excuse. Santa Claus list of excuses of why he can't do it. But he done made all these different videos since he dropped that Michael Jordan video and promised people that he was going to make a video on LeBron James. We'll get to him in a minute. Nevertheless, also, what about these owners? Where's the clause in the contract that you're making all this money, $40, $50 million a year, and we don't need you podcasting? I don't give a damn. If you're hurt, get your ass on the sideline, get involved with the team, do whatever, rehab. We don't need you podcasting, talking ish about this player, that player, past players. We need you to concentrate on the damn game that you get paid for, not podcasting. Because you have money. Or do they? That's a question you guys got to ask. Because the NBA is literally chasing the fan base away. Real basketball fans done hauled ass. Took off. Got away from this nonsense. And most of your tickets now are just corporate tickets. By fans who aren't even fans of basketball. They just want to see entertainment. They really don't care about the team. They don't care about defense. They don't care about anything that's really supposed to be associated with the game of basketball. Except for some tall dudes running down the court playing basketball. That's all they care about. Because if they cared about the NBA in the history, they wouldn't even be showing up to the arenas to entertain the nonsense that the NBA has been putting their fans through for over 10 years. But again, you have fantasy fans now. You don't have blue-collar, hard-working fans no more that really used to know the game. That past players went out and entertained and played hard for, competed, and was competitive and stuff like that. You don't have those type of fans no more. So you don't have those type of players. But, the big picture for me, like I said, I don't think these players are getting paid this much money. I just don't. There's nothing to show me by the way they move that they're getting paid this kind of money. There's nothing. And to me, they can do the stuff they do with these fake injuries, not show up to work, podcast, don't play. They can do all these things because I don't think they're getting paid this kind of money. And they're not being held accountable by the fans. These are not the same NBA fans of the past. They're not the same NBA fans of the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. Hell, just go back to the 90s. You had fans cussing out their own team. The players on their own team, the fans was for missing free throws. You heard some of the most horrible stuff you ever heard when a player missed a free throw. By the fans, not the coaches, not the opposing team, the fans. Why they have to put your sorry ass on the line? All you do is miss. We don't really need you on this team. You suck. I'm trying to tell you what, man. They give it to you football fan style back in those days. And you couldn't say nothing. This was going on up until the 2000s. We remember the Malice at the Palace, stuff like that, bro. I'm not trying to say that stuff still should be happening. I'm just saying it was happening, and I'm saying the fans held the players accountable because they were fans of the team. And some of them, through family tradition, they were fans before them players even came. Those fans pay all their money or a lot of their money just to go see the games. They know about the game. That's why they can hold these players accountable. They know how much they made because it was thrown in their face, and they held the players accountable. The shenanigans that's been going on for the past 10 years, if you still had the same fan base from the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 60s, them arenas will be empty. Empty. No way would they put up with these shenanigans. LeBron James will be an afterthought if you had those same fans. Bronny won't even be in the league. This is how much a joke the NBA has become. And yes, their arenas might be full, but guess what? Their viewership ain't about nothing. And that's why they're trying to run to Europe and all these other countries to not only get these players, but get the ratings, get the viewership. The NBA has been a mess. Their so-called face of the league the last 10 years is hated. You ain't never heard of that in any other sport, especially the NBA, where the face of your league was hated. As much as they talk ish about Barry Bonds now and after he retired, Barry Bonds was loved by the fans. The media put the hate on Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds wasn't hated by the fans. Barry Bonds was loved. Just all this hate they try to put on Wilt Chamberlain all these years. Wilt Chamberlain was loved by the fans. He might have been hated by the media at the end of his career. And that's another thing. They hated on Wilt Chamberlain because of his views. His views. Because he wasn't down with the whole Black Panther and this whole movement that was going on back then, the civil rights movement. And a lot of people don't realize a lot of black people wasn't with it neither. They didn't want to integrate. They wanted to keep what they had in their community. Yes, it was bad in the South, but you got to remember, most of that stuff, except for the KKK, we got to condemn that. But people with common sense now know that was funded by the government. But the reason why it was so bad for black people in the South, because they told them after the Civil War that Jim Crow, and it's so crazy, this was for poor whites too. If you go look it up, Jim Crow was for poor whites, but they never tell you that. Jim Crow, it is funny because, they came to free a whole bunch of poor slaves who didn't have a pot to piss in. But still, they're putting the pressure on them to do this and do that, and take this away from them, take that away from them, after they supposedly just came out of slavery. How does that work? Listen, you ain't got a pot to piss in. We just freed you, and now we're going to put Jim Crow on you. What? How's that work? Listen. Listen. So they told the blacks down south, if you don't register your land, you can't vote or own a business. What land? Oh, you forgot about the millions of acres of land that black people owned during slavery. That land. What? I thought black people was all slaves. Don't worry. The civil rights, what was it called? Man, I forget what it's called. Anyways, the bill that got passed, the Civil Rights Act bill that got passed by Martin Luther King in the government. What's the word? What's the word? I can't remember the word right now. But that Civil Rights Bill Act, it registered all black people's land with the government. You think I'm playing? When you register something, you give ownership. When you register your car with the city, when you go get your, guess what? They own it. And now they can charge you taxes on it. Anyways, like I said, don't worry. The YouTubers ain't gonna tell you this, or the black YouTubers. So back then, they put Jim Crow on the blacks. You can even look this up. Black people were owned enslaved, owned hundreds of acres of land in the South, and put their kids in the Civil War in the South, the Confederacy, and funded the Confederacy. On top of that, a lot of blacks did. Hundreds. They won't tell you that. Anyways, so they told black people, of course, like I said, they said, if you don't register your land and you don't go to our schools, because remember, it's time to rewrite history. That's what Reconstruction means, to reconstruct. They're going to start rewriting history from then on after the Civil War. And that's what they did. So if you don't register your land, if you don't send your children to our school, or you don't take literacy tests as an adult, then you can't vote. You got it? Hold on. You can't vote if you don't do those things. Here's what happened. They ain't gonna tell you. Not even your black coalition and all these Negroes, because they're with the system. You got to remember, a lot of these new Negro systems, a lot of these Negroes from this new system ain't even from the United States. They brought a lot of these Negroes over here, the United States, from the Caribbean and stuff like that, to push their agenda. Okay? Recently. In the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. So here's what happened. The Negroes in the South said, the majority of them, you know what they said? They said, eat my ass. They said, eat my ass. You know why? You know why you would say eat my ass to that proposal? Because what they knew back then, if they registered their land, it wasn't so much the going to school thing, even though they could care less, but, or voting. You just lost to the South. Why the hell you want to vote for these people? It's ridiculous. And if they're telling the true story that they tell in school, it doesn't make any sense. You would be trying to first class these people after freeing them from slavery. Well, of course, what they did, they gave you a fake story. They said Abraham Lincoln got shot. And then the racist people in the South took over and put this on the Negroes in the South. First of all, Abraham Lincoln was owning slaves. And all these Negroes up north and whites were owning slaves too. The Harriet Tubman crew was running a scam, a scheme, a business, stealing black people and white people from the north and selling them down south. They was running a Ponzi scheme. And then their families would pay the Harriet Tubman crew to go get them. And why this happened? Because the North wanted to end slavery down in the South because these whites and these Negroes was getting paid. So the North was like, you gotta pay us taxes on your slave. The South said, no, we're already paying taxes on all this other stuff. Remember, when you buy a slave, which was mostly indentured back then, you have to pay a certain price depending on what they was able to do. They was a blacksmith, they could make jewelry, they was a hunter, they was a seamstress, they could, they were a good cropper. Whatever it was, it depends on what they could do. Not this stupid lie they're telling you they brought a whole bunch of no good people from Africa who couldn't do nothing. It's ridiculous. So they were paying $800 back then. Look it up, to $3,500 per slave. So sometimes they couldn't even pay that money outright. They had to pay it as they made money at their business, because that's all slavery was a legal thing. It was a business. And all these people who had slaves had businesses. That's all you need to know. So what else you need to know? So yeah, they was running a Ponzi scheme. The Harriet Tubman crew, the abolitionists. How are these niggas free up in the North? Who got them free? Because they're trying to take about all this slavery. And then you could even look this up by, what was it, by like in the early 1700s, you were just able to come over here for free without being indentured, without being any kind of slave. You was allowed to come to the North. It don't matter if you was black or white. The thing is, if you went to the South at that time, you was indentured, you was promised all this land, so you can get slaves too. So you had a choice, which was a business, and that was in the early 1700s. You had that choice. It don't matter if you was white or black. So you had a choice to go down south, do an indentured servitude, and after a year or two, get a whole bunch of land, and you get slaves too. And it's pretty much you starting a business. Or you could go up north and just kind of work, for the government and pay taxes. And pretty much hunt Indians and all this nonsense that the government was doing back then. Kill all these animals. So that was your choice in the 1700s. Even as a black person, they ain't gonna tell you. They gonna tell you that. This is why when they tell these silly stories that don't make no sense, and they say, all these Negroes just came from Africa and they were slaves, they didn't know English, and they didn't know this and they didn't know that. How was they taking these slave owners to court? With what money? What knowledge? What freedom? See, they try, if you don't read, they try to make a fool out of you. They will tell you the truth, but at the same time will make a fool out of you. So, of course, the Harriet Tubman crew was running this Ponzi scheme, like I told you they were doing. But the reason why they were doing it, not only to make money, but so the Civil War could pop off. Now, all this done stirred off and got over here, what I'm talking about in this video, because we're talking about Will Chamberlain in his views that he wasn't down with the Civil Rights Movement. And I'm just trying to tell you guys a little bit about history. It don't matter if you're black or white. We all got swindled. Even you can read their history and half of it don't even make sense. They're trying to tell you one thing, but when you look at it, it's saying they're doing another thing. But we're just telling you the real facts about what was going on back then, because you have a history before Reconstruction and one after. But, like I said, this, the Harriet Tubman crew doing that, it was going to spark off the Civil War, because these Negroes and whites, You remember the movie 12 Years a Slave? They even had a movie about this. This is so crazy. They had a movie about this, about them stealing slaves and selling them down south. Now, they didn't say Harriet Tubman was doing it, but we found out she was. They was running game to spark off, because about abolitionists, they were with the government up there. But anyways, it would spark off the Civil War, because these whites and these blacks up north, they didn't have no other choice. Because for one, they was getting sick of their family getting stole into slavery from up north. Two, paying the money to go get them. So you even have a kind of like in a magazine back then, I forget what it's called, and you had Abraham Lincoln begging Negroes from the north to go to war against the South, and they kept saying, this ain't our fight, we don't want to do this. Imagine, with the history they're telling you now, or they've been telling you, that black people up north could tell Abraham Lincoln, no, I'm not going to war. But this is what they was telling them up north. They don't want to fight this war. They ain't interested. It wasn't about freeing slaves. It was about the north. They were jealous that these Negroes and whites was making so much money on slavery down south and didn't want to pay more taxes. That's all it was about. But of course, yes, the Civil War did pop off, because these whites and these blacks up north, they were sick of their family members getting stolen into slavery. So what I'm trying to say is, a lot of black people was opposed and didn't give a damn about Jim Crow in the South, when the government said, if you don't register your land or go to school, or your children don't go to school, you can't vote. And they said, kiss my ass, I don't want to vote. And that's what happened. A lot of black people didn't want to register land because they didn't want to get it taxed, and it took it away. If you get back on the taxes, if you don't pay the taxes and you get backed up, they're going to take it. So many black people in the South could not vote, and they couldn't own businesses because of that. Not all of them, because you can go look. During that time, many black people were voting in the South that registered their land and went to school. The problem was, it may have been like half of the black population or more didn't register their land because they didn't want to pay taxes and eventually get it taken away. What happened? The Civil Rights Act. Why they trying to give you all this confusion about hate and all this stuff? All that land got registered away under the Civil Rights Act. And many black people start getting behind on the payments, on the taxes. That's what it was. And eventually that land got taken away. Some of it got taken away because a lot of black people, like my family, ran out of the South. Because, the KKK, which was, again, a government product, because they wanted black people off the land down south that they owned, that they didn't register. So a lot of black people just left the land, and a lot of them can go back and get it today. They still own it. But a lot of their family don't even know. So it's just sitting there. And a lot of black people, they didn't like what Martin Luther King was doing, because a lot of black people, especially up north and out west, was living great. Despite what's it called? Segregation. They was loving it. You don't remember all this stuff? Black Wall Street? This was everywhere. They try to just make it look like Black Wall Street was in Oklahoma. Black Wall Street was everywhere across the United States. Negroes were living like this. In California, we know that spot. Oklahoma, North Carolina, Chicago. They had one down in Florida. Black people was doing good with each other. That was the problem with the system. They didn't like that. They didn't need white people. Black people had their own stores, everything. Their own grocery stores, tire stores, shoe stores, clothing stores. They're going to their own schools. Everything was legit in the north and out west. And hell, some of the south. Desegregation was about bringing in immigrants. That's all it was about. Because segregation was about everybody being segregated. They even hated on everybody. Italians, Jews, these people, that people, the Chinese, everybody was segregated. Well, just blacks and whites, although it wasn't a lot of those other ethnicities here at the time. It was some. But black people was thriving in their own communities just good. But they want to turn around and give you some propaganda that you can't sit somewhere on the bus. Or give you some propaganda that you can't eat chicken noodle soup at somebody else's restaurant. They make the best chicken noodle soup and you just got to be there. You just got to be there. cap, black people was just doing just good with each other. The desegregation, fooled a lot of people. Like, black people was going to be on the same accord in the white people's economy with white people, or be on the same level with white people in the white people's economy. So the thing was, everybody, come together and do business with each other. But when the ball dropped, you looked around, nobody was doing business with black people. Nobody was buying off of black people. And then they start giving all the ethnicities, all the big business loans and stuff like that, setting up shop in the black communities. So whites didn't come, Indians, Asians, Arabs, Spanish, they didn't come start buying off of black business. And they still won't. So I'm just trying to tell you what Martin Luther King was. Of course, he was a Freemason and he worked for the system. But you know what I'm saying? How could you like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X? That don't even make any sense. Malcolm X was what I just told you what black people was before integration. That's how he wanted it. For black people to do for black people, and black people to be with black people. That's what he wanted. And, we can say a whole bunch of other stuff. But, that's the thing with Will Chamberlain. He wasn't with the whole civil rights thing and stuff like that. And he was voting for the wrong party and all this stuff. If you was black back then, you had to vote for a certain party. That's how they looked at it. And you was really voting for white people when you think about it. I mean, it's insane. You can't put no full-blooded black person up in office and a white person will vote for him. You can't. You had to get a dude from Indonesia that posed like he had an African father and a white mother. Now he probably do got a white mother, but the dude is Indonesian. Obama. Nevertheless, that's why Will Chamberlain was hated. Will Chamberlain knew history. He probably knew history back there. Remember, Martin Luther King was a Republican. A lot of people forget that. Martin Luther King was a Republican. So yeah, they hate on Will Chamberlain, man. For his views. And his views wasn't, for whites or nothing like that. But he wasn't with the Civil Rights Act and, and all this that was going on. Because he probably seen through all that stuff. Black people really got nothing out of that. When you look at today, man, you come on, man. You really didn't get nothing out of it. You got people coming from other countries now trying to live what your foreparents went through, and their foreparents wasn't even here. But they want to call themselves you. But you can't go to their country and go to Jamaica, Haiti, Barbados, all these places, Africa, and say, yeah, my foreparents went through what your foreparents went through in this country. You can't do that. But other people can come over here and claim you. And that's what the whole thing was about. Sharing with everybody else, but they don't share with you. They don't share your history. They don't share your culture. They don't share your customs. And they damn sure won't, share with you as far as buying from you if you start a business. I'm being serious. Not even these foreign Negroes that come over here. They still won't buy nothing from you. You ain't got to worry about the Spanish, the whites, the Indians, the Arabs. Not even the foreign Negroes won't buy from so-called African Americans. So this is why Will was hated to death also, because of that stuff. Because he wasn't with the so-called black coalition back then. And I could get into that because we already know Bill Russell was a part of that. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave that alone because I could dig into that now that I done told you a little bit about slavery and about what was happening before Reconstruction. But I ain't gonna go there. I'm gonna keep it basketball with Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I'm gonna just honor these guys for being great basketball players. But they did some sellout, dishonesty stuff back in the 60s. They did. Yeah, and one more thing about this whole thing. If you think I'm playing, my grandfather, because my father, he was born when my grandfather, when my grandfather was already in his 50s. It's crazy. Or a little bit older, because my grandfather died when he was in his 70s, and my father was still young. I think he was maybe like 10, 11, 12 or something like that. And, because his brothers and sisters are like 20, almost 30 years older than him. And that's another thing I was seeing with genealogy, that the men were having children when they were, older. They were like in their 50s, 60s and stuff like that. But that's a whole different thing. Compared to, people can't even have children right now. Because when you go back and you look at genealogy, back from, I would say 1960 all the way until, when they were starting to let us see it in the 1700s or whatever like that, the average family was having like 8 to 12 children. Yep, 8 to 12 children. That's what they was having. All the way up until, the 1960s. And then it started in the 70s to 90s. It started to be 3 to 5. And we already see what it is now. Depopulation, right? Because, again, they're trying to change history. That's what they're trying to do. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay on topic. I just know too much. I'm sorry, I just can't hate on LeBron James or just talk about basketball like, you're going to get patted on the back like these other people do. I'm not like that. And, I don't think of myself just as another sub trying to make me money or me being better than them, greater than them, having more knowledge than them in sports. Because you got to remember, sports is just sports, guys. It's a kid's game. And sometimes, we'll try to make it on YouTube like it's really more than what it is. It's a kid's game where a whole bunch of athletes are getting overpaid. And in this case, in these days, they're way overpaid. If they're even getting paid this money, it's hard for me to believe the way these guys move. But my grandfather on my dad's side, he didn't go to school. My people was from the South. All of the South and all of it. And then my other side, we're from the North. 1600s. From the 1600s, I trace my people on my other side. We're from the North. The North. And then my other side of the family, I trace them back to the 1700s. We're from the South. So on my father's side, that we're from the South, his father didn't even go to school. And his brothers and sisters, they didn't go no damn school. And they was doing just fine. Now, hell, even my aunts that are like 30 years older than my brothers from the South, they didn't go to school neither. And what I'm talking about, this Jim Crow, what I'm trying to tell you about, and what happened with the civil rights, how this, connects in. So my father's father didn't go to school, and they were doing just great. And like I said, many black people back then in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, all the way to the 1800s, 70s, they didn't go to no damn school. They had land, they farmed, and they did good. Nevertheless, my grandfather didn't go to school. And guess what? His parents didn't go to school neither. And they own land. And lived until, I think he lived until like, late 90s. And he was a sharecropper. Now they want to turn this sharecropper, even white people were sharecroppers. They want to turn this whole sharecropper thing into, this is what they had to sell to the white man once they got out of slavery. Black people were sharecroppers during slavery. It was a business. That was the business. And again, most of these people, the whites and the blacks who came over here in indentured servitude, they got land once their time was up. So you could own a slave, own slaves to work for you, or you could just get out of that whole thing, which was a business, or you could just go on your own, have a family, and you could be a sharecropper on your own. Because guess what? They was having all these kids back then, and the kids worked on the land. So this is where they get these ridiculous photos from. And there are black people out there picking cotton and working on land. No, this was their land. They were sharecropping their own crops to sell to the government, to sell to the system. Whatever, man. I'm just telling you. ain't no school book. Ain't nobody gonna tell me about my history. And that's what a lot of these, Negroes do. They, especially these Negroes that come over here from other countries, they want to run with the system story because it really benefits them. Their people weren't even over here in none of these events. Just like my people wasn't in their country in none of those events. I can't say my people was part of those events. Yes, we can say we're the same people through skin color. That's fine. But through culture and customs and, events and stuff like that, no, I can't say I understand the Jamaican culture and the customs and all. I can't say that. Can't do it if I go to Barbados or wherever there's black people at. All I can do is understand what happened with my people in the real history. Like, if I go to Jamaica, Haiti, Barbados, wherever Negroes is, in Brazil, wherever they at. Their history is all twisted and lied about too. So this ain't no diss on them. They've been lied to about their history also. Everybody been lied to about history. And that's how the system is able to do what it wants to do. That's the only way. So that's what I'm saying with the Will Chamberlain thing. He wasn't with the civil rights movement, and he got penalized for it. Look at Malcolm X. He went with the civil rights movement, and he got penalized for it. That's what I'm saying. I don't see how you can even. It doesn't make no sense. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. You can like both of them. They were totally opposites. Now, there was some stuff that, I didn't like what Malcolm X was trying to propose, some of it. But as far as black people with black people, doing with black people, it was all good. Because everybody else can do with each other. And it's cool, the Indians, the Arabs, the Asians, the Latinos, the whites. But Martin Luther King was pushing for blacks to do with everybody. Well, mostly with whites. But they didn't know it was going to spread. When we talk about, when we had that Civil Rights Act and stuff like that, a lot of stuff was promised. A lot of, government programs, and so black people can get ahead in this system right here. A lot of minority loans and grants and stuff. And yes, they was there, and they have been there, and they continue to be there. But black people was fooled, because those programs, these minority loans and grants, they just wasn't for black people. They was for all people of color. Indians, Arabs, Asians, Latinos, whoever come over here is a minority. Even white women are considered minorities. So they was for all minority people. And those are the people who have benefited off of it the most. While those programs came available since the 1960s, they took the black community for a damn ride. What happened in the 80s? Remember, all that stuff happened at the end of the 60s, right? What I'm talking about, all those minority loans and grants and all this stuff was available to black people. But that was at the end of the 60s going into the 70s. By the time we got to the 80s, they took black people on the damn whirlwind with crack, gangster rap, and all this other stuff. So while they was tearing the black community up, all these minorities were coming over here from other countries and benefiting off all these minority loans that initially was set up for so-called Negroes, African Americans, Afro Americans, black, colored. That's who they told it was set up for. But they forgot minority meant everybody. So while the civil rights was basically for black people out there fighting for these so-called civil rights, and nobody else wasn't, these other so-called minorities, the other minorities benefit off of it. Yep. Don't worry, Dreamers Pro won't tell you that. Dreamers Pro won't tell you that. Because his people weren't even over here at that time. And he wasn't either. Anywho, let's talk about this fool right here, Johnny Arnett. Johnny Arnett. So we know he put out that video with Tim, I think Habersan, whatever the hell his name is, about Michael Jordan's 1988 year. And basically he was saying his steals and blocks were inflated. And that's a clutch move. Nobody is doing business or doing anything without being compensated for their time. It just don't work like that. So he got a clutch paycheck to put that out. And nobody really seen any real video footage of it. He was just out touting it, talking it, trying to sell it. So nobody really seen nothing until Johnny Arnett decided to go dig up the tapes and inspect the video that Tim was talking about and bring it to light. Now, as a so-called Michael Jordan fan, and this guy, puts Michael Jordan, number one in whatever he claims, he could have went into the video and saw what he saw and kind of left it alone. And why is that? Because we know LeBron James' numbers are inflated. This is clutch work. And that LeBron James doesn't even deserve anything like this with the way he's carried himself, the media, and how he done destroyed the game. So he had an option whether he's seen something right or wrong, just to leave it alone. And say, Clutch, LeBron James, they don't deserve anything like this. Cheated, melted down, choked, everything to destroy the NBA. That's the first thing he would say if he was a Michael Jordan fan. No, better yet, he would not even entertain that. He would not even looked up or dug up the video to even see if some of that was right. If he was a Michael Jordan fan, or a person that said LeBron James don't deserve the benefit of the doubt on this side of the camp, they don't deserve it for everything he done did wrong in his career. And maybe his numbers are inflated too. But guess what? Johnny Arnett didn't do that. Johnny Arnett proceeded to think money. See money in the future. Must be the money. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. So Johnny Arnett put out the videotape. And again, he knows what's going to come if he brings out the videotape of these things about Michael Jordan. The consequences, the repercussions, but he was all about money. That's why I said a lot of these guys out here, you got to realize, a lot of them really ain't NBA fans. And whether Johnny Arnett is or ain't, whatever. But I'm just saying, a lot of them ain't. Or whatever kind of YouTube channel they got. They're not really about that subject matter that they entertain on their channel. They just see money signs. That's it. And good for them. Nevertheless, Johnny Arnett promised, was it in that video or the next video? Because remember, the next video, he did another guy from the 80s. Forget who it was. In a similar video on Michael Jordan. And I think, was it this guy didn't deserve defensive player of the year? Something like that. He might have did somebody else too. I forget who it was. But nevertheless, he promised time and time again that he was going after LeBron James. After the first video, after the second video, he tries to destroy the 80s. He kept telling us about LeBron James. No, he put up, what guy do you want the most? He just had these different guys. And then everybody, I think they picked LeBron James the most. And we want to see LeBron James. So I guess that was a year and a half ago. He's been saying that, first it was a kid. Been busy. He didn't know how stressful it was going to be with the baby. How much time it was going to take. That went on for like a year. That excuse. Wow. He was making in-depth video after video after video after video after video. Count how many videos he done made since he made that Michael Jordan video. I think it was no more than, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after he made that Michael Jordan video that I think AOH, maybe a 20-minute video or something like that, 15-minute video of all these different games where LeBron James should not have been counted for this rebound or this block, and I think maybe assist, whatever it was. He didn't get counted for turnover, whatever that was. It came out fast. In no way does AOH even have close to the production that Johnny Arnett has. Well, let's speak some facts right here. I said it one time and I said it before. For Johnny Arnett to pull that move and do clutch work, that's what he did. Brother got a paycheck and he got a whole bunch of views from it. For one, how could he call himself a Michael Jordan fan? I don't think he is. Just for doing that. A fake Michael Jordan fan. But also, he has to be a fake Kobe Bryant fan. Because the whirlwind that Clutch, the media, and LeBron James has put Kobe through, and the Kobe fans through, the past, 5 to 8 years. However long Kobe, they've been hating on Kobe a little bit longer before he passed away. So about 7 years or something like that. This big whirlwind that they done put Kobe through, and Kobe's fans, Kobe's legacy. The media, Unclutch, LeBron James fans, and LeBron James did that to Kobe Bryant and his legacy. we don't think you're a Kobe Bryant fan. Not just because of Michael Jordan thing that he did, is because you would do something like that for the LeBron James camp so they can get a leg up. They don't deserve it. You're doing work for the LeBron James camp. Again, after what they put Kobe legacy through, to me, he's a fake Kobe Bryant fan. He's a traitor. Even if he is a Kobe Bryant fan, a traitor for money. He could put out, like, I lost respect for the guy's channel after that, guys, because he wasn't that guy. He was just the basketball historian. That's what people knew Johnny Arnett for, respected Johnny Arnett for just that. He didn't really get into the soap opera, the back and forth of it, and that's what he was respected for. But the first soap opera in the back and forth, guess what? It was a shot at Jordan legacy. It was clutch work for money. Whether he was getting a clutch check or he was just doing it for the views. Oh man, I was just trying to clear up something. There's nothing to clear up. Not for the LeBron James camp. There's nothing to clear up right there, buddy. Nothing. They don't get no benefit of doubt. They don't get no help because all they did is cheat. Cheat, lie, and do it wrong. You wasn't clearing nothing up. You made it worse. And you actually made yourself worse because you didn't do what you had to do by coming through after you fucked up. And now, we don't even know if this guy is like, oh man, I ain't getting the views because of the algorithm and all this stuff. Please, dude. Just say you want to start a members only to make more money. Because nobody don't know if you're lying or not because you're a traitor. And maybe you're not getting the views that you used to because you didn't come through. All you had to do was come through. No, matter of fact, you didn't have to come through with the LeBron James video. All you had to do was not make the Michael Jordan video. That's it. That's it. I mean, this is ridiculous, man, with this dude. For this guy, I'm just blown, man. About to say a loss for words, but I mean, it hasn't been a loss for words. And the reason why he won't put out these videos on LeBron James camp, on LeBron James, because he's a LeBron James lover. A dude with his following, his subs, and his ability, what do you call it? Well, I guess the editing and all that stuff that this guy has. He should have tore LeBron James' legacy apart a long time ago because everybody else has. Everybody has destroyed LeBron James' legacy 300 times over. And this guy ain't did nothing. Because he's about the money, guys. He's got a whole bunch of LeBron James fans on his channel. And he don't want to mess up his money. And it's just surprising to me that he will mess up his money with the LeBron James, with the Michael Jordan fans. And I thank the Kobe Bryant fans too, just because he did that to help, clutch out. You're pissing in the Kobe Bryant fans' face too. By helping LeBron James out after what they've done to Kobe's legacy. So with all that said, you better hope you got a clutch check for doing clutch work. You better hope. If not, you got to be an idiot. Because he tried to bury Michael Jordan's legacy That's like the worst thing some of the worst things you could look at. And then on top of that, I mean, you destroying the NBA in general by pooping on Kobe and pooping on Michael Jordan at the same time. So, this is a clutch move that isn't unfamiliar. If we can't win, we're going to take down the rest of the NBA. And that's what basically Clutch and LeBron James has been doing over the past, several years. If I'm not the best, I'm going to take down all these other eras. Plumbers, didn't play no competition, didn't do this, didn't do that. Just with, all great players of the past. So this is not unfamiliar with this so-called 88 season. We're going to take down Michael Jordan's legacy. The Clutch team. And guess who was part of the Clutch team? Johnny Arnett. And yes, he's got a lot of, let's don't confuse Laker fans with LeBron James fans. He's got a lot of Laker fans on his channel, but he's got a lot of LeBron James fans on his channel that he don't want to offend the LeBron James fans. So that's why he don't want to make that video. Because he done showed the LeBron fans what he's all the way in tune with them in Clutch and in the media by making that video against Michael Jordan and never making a video against LeBron James. So he's showing the LeBron James fans where he stands, and he stands with them. By even making a video, period, against Michael Jordan, he told him, F making one against LeBron James. For you to make one, dig that up against Michael Jordan, you told us you stand with the LeBron James fans, the media, and LeBron James. And like I said, if this guy was a real, sports fan in general, he would have buried LeBron James a million times by now. Everybody else has. Where are all the videos burying this guy? Because I told you, his channel really ain't about the soap opera, he said, she said, but he does make videos about controversy. NBA history controversy, this player did this player, but it ain't, he don't get on here he wasn't known for going back and forth. He said, she said, type of stuff that we do, the soap opera. But he has did videos about controversy, and LeBron James' career has been nothing but controversy. Every single year. Like every other day, matter of fact. And he should have buried LeBron James 6 feet deep a long time ago. Consistently. Like everybody else does. But he won't. Why is that? Because of the money, folks. The money. So all I'm doing is holding this dude to a standard. The standard was, we knew Johnny Arnett for being a great historian on his channel and not really being with the whole soap opera. He said, she said, going back and forth, all that stuff. That was his standard. He went outside that standard to do Clutch work. Because he's seen money signs. I'm just saying, man. He got a new standard. To me. Because he don't try to back out the new Johnny Arnett that he really is. But no, you can't try to wiggle your way out of that. It was what it was, dude. You showed us a different person of who you really are. You can't wiggle out of that. I don't care how many, what do you call it, lives you go on with other people and try to act like it's something else. It still is what I don't care that they don't want to hold him accountable. That don't mean nothing. Because a lot of fans, NBA fans, are still holding this guy accountable. I don't do lives or nothing like that on panels, but I wouldn't go on no panel with this guy. And if I did, I would hold him accountable every single time I see him. I will hold this guy accountable. That's what I would do. For what he did, and then what he said he was going to do. I don't know what was worse, what he did or what he said he was going to do. It's kind of tough, right? Him doing clutch work, that's pretty bad. And then him saying he's going to do the same thing to LeBron James and make these videos, and he never did. So it went from bad to worse. I don't know, man. It's just hard for me to even fathom just a dude like that. All the great videos he ever made, and then he went that route. It's just mind blowing. But I'm just trying to tell you, man. Money will make you do some crazy stuff out here, man. That's why, a lot of people, are lost. They think we live in a different world. They think we live in this, kind world, loving world, religious world, helping world. No, we live in the world of commerce. Every day you walk outside the door, what you see? World of commerce. Even a little kid, when you go to school, that's business. These teachers getting paid, tax money. Your parents are working. You got to pay. It's the world of commerce that you live in. You don't live in anything else, folks. In a world of commerce means money. That's all it means. You don't live in any kind of other world. Look around. Everything is about money. We were talking about slavery and all that. What were charters? They were something that the king sent over here, and they were things that corporations back in Europe invested in with the king. Companies invested in these charters to go to the New World. The king just didn't fund this. It was other different companies that invested in these charters to go to the New World, to go do this and that. And then when they set up colonies were just, companies and corporations that did businesses in those colonies. And they said, well, who want to go to these colonies? The people will give you, you go over here and work in the colonies. You'll be able to get your own land and get your own workers, which I guess they call them slaves. You'll be able to get your own workers and start your own business. So that's what I'm saying. It's just that corporations have been around for a long time, guys. This ain't nothing new. In the world of commerce, isn't nothing new. That's why we try to tell people that they got two histories. The school is telling the history in the world of commerce. They ain't telling the history of the land. That's a whole different history. You got the United States Corporation, democracy. They deal with the world of commerce. And then you got the United States Republic, who has their own constitution, has their own flags. They deal with the history of the land. What happened to the history of the land? So in the world of commerce, yes, you might tell the history of the United States or the Americas, but they can finagle stuff, right? They could put different faces on the history. They can tell you half lies. But the history of the land, that's the real history of the land. What really happened? Those are the people of the land. The United States Corporation, they can put different people of the land because they're dealing in fake dishes. It's not real. They're dealing with straw men, straw people. It's a fake history. It's not all the way fake, but it's just, they can finagle stuff. You got the laws of the land, and then you got laws in the world of commerce. You got the United States flag, which ain't the American flag. There's no American flag. It's the United States of America flag. So the United States flag, which is not an American flag, it's a state's flag. That's it. At best, it's not the American flag. And then you got the states' flags. Each state's got its own flags. Each state used to have its own money before Reconstruction. How about that? Did you know that? Each state had their own money. And black people was on the money. White people was on the money. Indian people was on the money. Until we decided to take the United States Corporation's money. And now they're president. Remember, United States Corporation is a is a company. It's a corporation. That's why you have presidents and vice presidents. Because who's running that corporation? Who owns the corporation? Well, it's all these people, or all these different companies that invested in a company. All these different European countries, a lot of these Indians, they invested in this United States corporation to bring you presidents and vice presidents and bring you, these corporate laws and these laws of commerce and all this nonsense. United States is a corporation that's ran by many people in different companies. It ain't got nothing to do with the United States Republic or the states who are republics. Two different things. So we decided to go with the United States, debt money, with the presidents on it after 1933. That's what we decided to go with. Or we didn't decide. They pretty much forced us. This state sold us out. I mean, great. The reason why they don't ever say, they always say this great democracy. Yeah, because that's the United States corporation. You live in a republic in which it stands, one nation. They will never say republic on TV. That's the reason why. They won't. Well, I'm talking about the news. Fox won't say it. CNBC won't say it. NBC won't say it. CNN won't say it. They'll just scream democracy because it's part of that United States corporation. They want you to stay in that democracy. They don't want you to hear nothing about no republic because you got different laws and you got different freedoms under the republic in your state. They don't want you to know nothing about that. Remember, everything is out there for you to know. They don't hide it. They can't hide it. All they can do is do what? Confuse you. Pay people to confuse you. Keep the confusion going. Therefore, you basically implode on yourself as far as knowledge. And if you don't have the knowledge, you just talking around a damn water cooler sounding like all these other fools. About religion, about voting, about politics. Go listen to most of these people. You already know they brainwashed. And they don't know nothing because when you get together, no matter who it is, they get around and they talk about the same stuff. And if they hear somebody else talking about something different, look at the look on their face. Looking like, sounding like Scooby-Doo. And they don't want to entertain it. And they'll just start talking about something else. Because they feel uncomfortable if they're not talking like Jim, Bill, Chris, Deontay, Mookie, Pookie, Deshaun, whatever. They all talk the same, but don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. I'm trying to tell you, it's crazy out here, folks. And they always fighting about nothing. They always fighting about nothing. They fighting about what these fools done told them on TV. Which is basically nothing. A whole bunch of lies.